Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kat, and today we are doing the rule of thirds tag. I was tagged by Ellen over at the Ellen Read Book Club channel, and this tag was originally created by Sui at Sui's Book Banter for her 3rd year anniversary on BookTube. I'm quite late to this, but better late than never. There are 3 sets of 3 questions. The first ones are about books and reading, the second ones are about booktubing, and then the third one are just for fun. Starting with the first set of questions, what are your 3 favorite genres? So the 3 genres that I read most are fantasy, literary/contemporary fiction, and then non-fiction. Non-fiction isn't really a genre because there is so much variety within it, but for the purpose of this video, we will call it a genre. Who are your 3 auto-buy authors? I don't have any. I've learned over the years that I am more of a book kind of person than an author kind of person. It's very likely that I will love some books by an author but not love all of them, and so I'm very much driven by kind of the topic and the premise of the book. Obviously, if I love the writing of a writer, I will be more willing to pick up more books, but I'm very much, again, driven by what the book is about, kind of the topic, what it touches on. Is the premise exciting? Is it something that I'm interested in? And I have had some disappointment before coming to that realization, because some of the authors of my favorite books of all time have also produced books that I ended up not enjoying at all and that weren't for me. It's totally fine. It's just, again, a question of taste, and some books really hit a sweet spot for me and others just didn't work, and then I just have to learn to move on and just find the books that do work for me. So to still give you a little bit of something, 3 authors that I am currently willing and curious to read more from are Hannah Kanner. She's the author of the Fallen Gods trilogy, which I absolutely loved. And she is coming up with a new trilogy, or at least the first book in a trilogy, later this year. The premise doesn't excite me as much as her previous trilogy, but it's still enticing enough that I'm willing to give it a go and to read it and see what she comes up, because, again, I really enjoyed her first one, so I am really curious to see what she puts out next. Then we have Meg Mason. She wrote Sorrow and Bliss, which, again, was one of my favorite books of 2025. She's also coming up with a new book in 2026 that I'm really, really curious to read. So, again, this is like a premise thing. It could have been a completely different story that didn't interest me, and then I might not have picked it up. But this one I found intriguing and I'm curious to read. So I will pick it up and see for myself if I should read more of her books. And then the final one is actually a bit of a surprise, because I read one of her books already at the beginning of this year, 2026. And I've been keeping thinking about it to the point that now I really want to read more from her. And I also am left with the feeling that I enjoyed the book more than I did when I read it. I did enjoy it, but I don't think it was like... It's kind of a quiet, ambiguous book. It's not a big fantasy where you're kind of swept up by the story. So it's kind of interesting how much it stayed with me and how much I've been thinking about it. And this book is Intimacies by Katie Kitamura, I should say. And so I would be very curious to read more from her as well. What 3 books do you recommend the most? So I think so far on my channel, the books that I've recommended the most are A Winter's Promise by Christelle Labos, which is the first book in the Mirror Visitor series. Merchants of Doubt, which is a non-fiction book about how kind of seeding doubt in kind of science topics can really impact the public discourse around this topic and kind of obscure a more general scientific consensus. And then the third one would be Cemetery Boys, which is a YA fantasy novel with own voice LGBTQIA plus representation and neurodivergence representation. I read it in 2024 for November and ended up being my favorite book of the year. That being said, those are the ones that I mentioned the most and recommended the most on my channel. I think now there are some other books that I've read more recently that might also fight for this title, and that would be Empire of Normality by Robert Chapman, which is a non-fiction book about, again, neurodivergence. God Killer by Hannah Kenner, I already talked about her. Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, already mentioned. And then the Six of Crows / Crooked Kingdom duology by Leigh Bardugo. I think it was such a fun YA fantasy duology. I think it could be a really good entry point for people who are new to the genre. It was very engaging. I had a lot of fun with it. Moving on to the booktubing questions. What is your favorite book from each year for the past 3 years? So I've only been on YouTube for 2 years, so I don't have 3 years to look back. And I even tried to look back at my data from 2023, but there wasn't really a standout book from that year. Like, there were some books that I really enjoyed and I found interesting, but there was not one book that really stood out as my favorite of the year. That being said, I still have 3 favorite books from my 2 years on BookTube. For 2024, my 2 favorite books were Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas and Empire of Normality by Robert Chapman. I already mentioned both of them, but it was quite neat that I had a favorite fiction book and a favorite nonfiction. And then for 2025, I think my favorite book would be Faithbreaker, which is the 3rd book in the Fallen Gods trilogy by Hannah Kenner. Kind of annoyingly, I don't have really like a standout nonfiction book for last year, and it's kind of a symptom of the fact that I have been reading a bit less nonfiction last year, and so I want to remedy that and read more nonfiction now and hopefully find some new really exciting books that really leave a mark on me, like Merchants of Doubt and Empire of Normality. What are 3 things you've learned from booktubing? I actually made 2 videos about lessons that I've learned from my journey on YouTube. The first one was about like 10 lessons I've learned from making my 10 first videos, and then the second one was 10 more lessons after making 100 videos. So I will link those somewhere and in the description below. The main lesson that I've learned is that I can be consistent, I can stick to things. I have so many hobbies and I tend to cycle through them. I think this is a very common thing with neurodivergent folks, at least people who are neurospicy in a similar flavor than I am. And so I've always had that feeling that in a way that was kind of a flaw or a failure on my part, that I would not stick to things. But the reality is that there are some things that I'm very capable of sticking with and that I've done for a long time. And so picking up this YouTube hobby was also a good reminder that, like, yes, when it matters or when I want to, I can stick with things, but also like, who cares if I learn Japanese for 2 years and then stop for 2 more years and then go back to it later? Like, who cares? It's just a hobby. But for the things that matter, I'm also able to stick to things. So it was kind of a good affirming thing to realize and a good reminder as well. What are 3 goals you have for the next year on BookTube? Well, for the first time, I think, since the beginning of my channel, I don't really have any goals. I had times when I was not sure if I was gonna continue with BookTube, and so I kind of had milestones that I wanted to reach. So like reaching, for example, 100 videos or reaching 2 years on the platform. I've now done both of those things. And so I haven't really set up a new milestone that I want to reach. I'm just doing what I feel like doing, and I'm just enjoying the ride. And hopefully you are too. Yeah, I think the only thing is that I have a ton of footage for a writing vlog that I did months ago. And it's so late that I could just drop it, but I'm kind of stubborn and I want to finish editing it, but it's a bit daunting. So maybe that's the one goal. Like I want to finish that writing vlog and post it. But other than that, I don't have any goals. Like I have things that I aspire to, things that I would love to see happen, but that are not really in my control, such as reaching 500 subscribers. And then after that, the next really cool milestone would be 1,000 subscribers, getting monetized, getting a non-travel vlog video reaching 1,000 views, things like that. Things that, again, are not directly under my control, so I don't turn them into goals. It's just things that would be really, really cool if they happened, but I'm not I'm not obsessing over those, and I don't really think about them on a regular basis either. It's just like, yeah, that would be amazing, and that's it. Okay, now onto the fun random questions. What are 3 fictional worlds you'd like to visit? I mean, it pains me a bit to say because I am so disappointed in the author, but Hogwarts would be definitely a go-to place, because as rational as I am, as very aware I am that like magic doesn't exist, there is always this kind of tiny part of me, and I'm sure many other readers, who really wish that magic was real. And so Harry Potter is like a series that I grew up with that kind of fostered and nourished that dream and that little bit of fantasy, and hoping to see one day kind of magic emerge from a secret place in our world. So there is something very special about this world for me, and I think for many readers, despite all the horrible things that the author is doing and saying. Yeah, it's a tough one, because it's also a bit tainted now. So yeah. Another one would be the Fallen Gods trilogy world, because I just love this idea of having gods in all the odd places, and just having gods being able to be created and emerge into reality from the desires and the wants of us humans. I love how wild and lush that world is. So that's something I would love to see for myself. And then I think the third one is a bit cheating, but I would say His Dark Materials, because if I get my hands on the subtle knife, then I could visit an infinite amount of worlds, and so I would not have to choose. That would be kind of amazing. What are 3 ships you always root for? And ships being any kind of relationship. I think the first one would be Ophelia and Thorn from the Mirror Visitor series. I love their relationship, and I love how different they are, and how flawed and complex and weird they are, and just how well they work together. Then it would be Inara and Skedi, again from the Fallen God trilogy. So Inara is a young girl, and she is somehow tied to this god of white lies, Skedi, and they have this very complex relationship, but it's been incredible to see them grow throughout the trilogy and go through betrayal, mistrust, and then building their relationship again, and the love that they share between themselves. I love their relationship. And then the third one would be actually quite a similar one. It's Lara and Pantaleimon from His Dark Materials. So I think I have a thing for a young girl and kind of an animal-looking small creature companion. I really enjoy that. So yeah, those would be the relationships that I root for. Name 3 books with a number in the title. 6 of Crows, 10 Incarnations of Rebellion, One Part Woman. And then finally we have a bonus question. What books are you excited to read this originally the tag said next year, but I'm so late that it's going to be this year, 2026. And again, I have a whole video about my 26 for 2026 reading list, so you can check it out and find out all about the books that I'm planning to read this year. That's all for today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.